Republican Senator John Kennedy, a member of the pivotal Judiciary Committee, is now saying there will be a public hearing with Judge Brett Kavanaugh and his accuser, Christine Blasey Ford. So that is breaking right now. Pressure coming from Republicans in the Senate about how to deal with what has upended the entire Supreme Court confirmation process. Then there's the news that Steve Kornacki just mentioned as he was handing off moments ago, the White House saying Judge Kavanaugh is ready to testify in an open hearing as soon as tomorrow. Now, that is not typical language or typical planning for something this explosive, and that is our top story tonight. So let's get into it. The factual, legal, and political onslaught against Judge Kavanaugh has changed everything right now in Washington. He did appear to triumph through days of Senate hearings, only to find himself holed up at the White House most of today. Several hours, we're told, as he tried to salvage his nomination. Now, here are the facts. The anonymous accuser who made waves last week has now come forward under her own name. She is Professor Christine Blasey Ford, and she makes specific allegations which the Washington Post says it partly corroborated. She says that at a high school party in 1982, Kavanaugh pinned her to a bed on her back, that he, quote, groped her and even tried to remove her clothing. Then she says that when she was trying to scream, he put his hand over her mouth. Kavanaugh categorically denies the entire allegation. And we are in new territory right now. No one at this hour is even arguing this nomination and vote should proceed as it was going to before. The procedural fight now is how to deal with the accusations. Democrats pushing for, one, a total delay on this week's vote until there's a fact-finding process featuring both Ford and Kavanaugh. Now, he has said publicly in a written statement today that he is ready. And within the last hour, the White House has dialed that up to ready for tomorrow. Now, he spent several hours today huddling with Trump's counsel, Don McGahn, at the White House. NBC reporting they worked the phones and called members of Congress. And while Donald Trump is, of course, known for digging in his heels on all kinds of fights and accusations, look at this. Tonight, we can report for you that even he felt the need to acknowledge at least a delay here might be necessary.
Judge Kavanaugh is one of the finest people that I've ever known. Oh, I think he's on track, yeah. I mean, I think he's very much on track. If it takes a little delay, it'll take a little delay. It shouldn't certainly be very much.
Many Republicans were hoping to move forward without much of a change, but a key swing vote is saying that lies by Kavanaugh on this story would be disqualifying, and they need new testimony.
If Judge Kavanaugh has lied about what happened, that would be disqualifying. That's why it's so important that we have testimony under oath with a lot of questions asked of both of them.
The accuser's lawyer says she's willing to speak.
Is your client willing to testify before the Judiciary Committee publicly and tell this story?
She is. She's willing to do whatever it takes to get her story forth, yes. She clearly considers this an attempted rape. She believes that if it were not for the severe intoxication of Brett Kavanaugh, she would have been raped.
Meanwhile, one of the most influential Republicans on that Senate Judiciary Committee, Orrin Hatch, who used to chair it, says he's already determined, in his view, these claims are not legitimate.
Do you think that any of these claims are legitimate?
No, I don't. I think this woman, or whoever she is mixed up.
Meanwhile, Kavanaugh has put out his written denial, his offer to testify, but he did avoid shouted questions from reporters today.
Judge Kavanaugh, are the allegations true?
Do you have any response to Christine Ford?
Judge Kavanaugh, will you testify?
We're going to have an expert panel weigh in on all of this, but I begin with a person who has a vote on the matter. Senator Richard Blumenthal, a Democrat, serves on the Judiciary Committee, and along with his colleagues is demanding both a delay in the vote and a chance to assess, as they put it, quote, Dr. Ford's serious allegations. Also, to begin the discussion, former counsel to the mayor of New York City, attorney Maya Wiley, an MSNBC analyst, joins me as well. Senator, the White House now says they could hold this hearing with Judge Kavanaugh's participation tomorrow. Do you support beginning this process tomorrow?
Before any hearing, there needs to be a full, fair FBI investigation involving sworn interviews with the potential witnesses and other review of records. There is no way to hold a hearing intelligently and responsibly without that investigation. Think of it this way, Ari. As a former prosecutor and attorney general, there's no way that I would put a crime survivor on the witness stand without a full investigation, let alone, in effect, a witness stand before the entire American people. I believe the survivor, Dr. Ford. She has chosen very bravely and courageously to step forward to tell her story, knowing the nightmare that would come from hostile and potentially searching scrutiny. And there are a lot of reasons to disbelieve Judge Kavanaugh based on his evasive and seemingly misleading testimony before our Judiciary Committee last week.
You mentioned the style of his testimony, particularly when there were certain factual, detailed questions posed. This was under, I'm about to play you, a Republican Senator, Kennedy, regarding some of his time as a younger man or a teenager. Take a look.
Did you ever get in trouble? Were you more of a John Boy Walton type or a Ferris Bueller type?
I worked hard at school. I had a lot of friends. I've talked a lot about my friends.
You left out the trouble part. I was waiting for that.
Right. So that's encompassed under the friends, I think. Yeah.
That exchange doesn't age well based on the serious allegations that have arisen today. Walk us through what you think a proper hearing and timeline should look like, and could it occur before the midterm elections, which hangs heavy on the mind of this White House?
There needs to be a complete investigation here by the FBI, taking as long as is necessary. The Republicans have set an arbitrary and irrational deadline. They are rushing to judgment. We're dealing here with a United States Supreme Court nomination, an appointment for life to the highest court in the land that makes a real difference in people's lives in the real world. So setting an arbitrary deadline ought to be absolutely avoided. And I believe strongly that there may well be a need for a hearing, and it should be as prompt as possible. But there needs to be that investigation first. The points where Judge Kavanaugh was evasive or misleading on his role in certain judgeship nominations, Pryor, Haynes, and Pickering, his involvement in stolen documents and his denials of it, flying in the face of seeming emails on it, the denials of his beliefs on reproductive rights, saying Roe can be overturned in memos that were disclosed, all raise the issues of what more is being hidden here. Today, I went to court with colleagues under the Freedom of Information Act demanding a court order that would involve revealing millions of pages of documents from the National Archives and the CIA. I hope the courts rule quickly, and that those undisclosed documents will shed further light on the merits of this nomination.
As you're speaking to us, I have more breaking news that I know you're on the committee, but you've also been stuck working with us here on television, Senator. But I'm reading breaking news that the committee on the Republican side would appear has agreed to schedule a hearing with both Professor Ford and Judge Kavanaugh on Monday. The New York Times saying this Thursday's committee vote has been postponed, according to a Republican briefed on the plans, courtesy of Nicholas Fandos, Hill reporter for the New York Times. Your response to that news, posted publicly there, Mr. Fandos has posted on Twitter and says the story is coming. That relates to what your colleagues on the committee are scheduling, of apparently a hearing Monday, sir.
At the risk of repeating, I strongly believe that the FBI has to investigate, interview the witnesses, assess the records and documents, if any exist, go back and do all of the fact-finding that is necessary. If we fail to do it before the hearing, we're going to be shooting in the dark. We literally will be asking questions with blindfold.
And stay with me, Senator. I want to bring in Maya Wiley. And Maya, I want to look at the corroboration that's in the Washington Post story, which overlaps with, I think, what the senator's point is, which is how do you go at adjudicating the potential facts. Her husband said, look, if you look to judges to be the arbiters of right and wrong, if they don't have a moral code of their own to determine right from wrong, that's a problem. Supreme Court nominees should be held to a higher standard. And I wonder what you think about the way the Post reported the story and how this relates to figuring out the facts, Maya, because there is a concern in highly politicized events with a lot hanging on the line that any individual or anonymous individual can theoretically say anything. And yet we are somewhere above that in the probative process, the factual process, because the Post has the husband and a therapist and the waiving of medical privilege corroborating that long before Donald Trump was president or Judge Kavanaugh was headed towards the court, there is a corroboration of this individual's at least accusation. She believed it. She said it back then. Walk us through your view of the facts there, and then any question you might have for Senator Blumenthal.
Well, first of all, I have to say that it was already disturbing, given the fact that this would be a Supreme Court justice, someone who was going to don the black robe for a lifetime and take a chair that was literally going to empower him to make decisions that even the President of the United States may be able to do something or not do something, or that Congress could do something or not do something. It's an extremely powerful position, and this is an alleged crime of power, not of sex. It's an abuse of power crime. So it's critically important to understand. One of the things as an attorney I would say is, so in 2012, she tells her therapist and her husband for the first time, for no other reason than to address some emotional trauma that she has had that's clearly playing out in her marriage. That's a huge fact in terms of understanding credibility, because at the end of the day, this is a credibility, right? Unless some other witness comes forward that we don't know about, it's going to be Brett Kavanaugh's word against hers, except that in her case, for no other reason, for no personal gain, years before he was ever considered for the Supreme Court, she tells this story and she names him to her husband. That, to me, says that this has a high degree of credibility, and that, remember, this is not a court of law. This is not a case in which you have to prove a crime. This is just whether a man is going to be one of the most powerful people in the country. I completely
let me
agree
bring
with
in
the
our
senator.
other. Actually, let me bring in our experts on that, and Senator, stay with me. Elise Hogue is the president of NARAL Pro-Choice America. Attorney Nancy Erika Smith represented Gretchen Carlson in her sexual harassment lawsuit against Fox News CEO Roger Ailes, which was quite influential. And Vox's Liz Plank, who has reported on many aspects of this. And Maya mentioned something that I want to put forward to the entire panel, which is a point that actually can get lost in these stories. What is the best standard to apply in fact-finding? The strictest standard is in criminal trials, where you have proof of wrongdoing beyond a reasonable doubt. Courts use a less strict standard. In civil cases, the government uses an even lower one in vetting applicants for major jobs, because the question is whether to choose someone for a powerful post, not deny them liberty or take away a job they already have, when you think about examples like David Petraeus. And unlike some of the other Me Too debates, like whether to fire someone, a point Maya just raised and we want to dig into is today's debate is not about removing Kavanaugh from his powerful perch on the D.C. Circuit. It's not about charging him with a crime, given the statute of limitations. The standard in play would appear to only be whether investigating these allegations should impact a big decision to promote him to a big job for life. And so, Nancy, I put that to you first. What is the right standard to think about this promotion?
I think it's a very low bar. If we have questions about this man's integrity, he shouldn't be given a lifetime appointment to the United States Supreme Court. Listen, we already know that he disrespects women. We know that. He doesn't think women can make their own medical decisions, and he doesn't think we should control our own bodies. Also telling is his lack of empathy. We know that he denied a young woman the right, her constitutional right, to an abortion. And the entire panel of the Third Circuit, of the D.C. Circuit, disagreed with him. And he said, well, waiting a month is not a problem. Waiting more than a month is not a problem. So he has a lack of empathy for women, and he has a disrespect for women. If that's not disqualifying enough, now we have Dr. Ford's credible allegation. She has nothing to gain here and everything to lose, that he was a drunken, almost rapist. It seems to me like that really should be enough right there.
Let me go to Elise and then Liz.
Yeah, I mean, I agree absolutely with Nancy. I think that the Republicans are grasping at straws. I think that the only thing they had going for them, which was this inevitability argument that, of course, is going to be confirmed, is crumbling under the rage of millions of women who've been saying at every step of this process that he is not qualified for the court for all the reasons Nancy said. And I think the spark of rage that really lit the fire today was Orrin Hatch's statement that, oh, this woman might be mixed up. step, which is something we're all too familiar with. Look, our organization, backed by 2 million members, as well as some others, called for him to withdraw his nomination even before Dr. Ford took what we believe was the unnecessary but very courageous step of coming forward. The receipts were there. The story is credible. I don't think anyone doesn't believe her, and his nomination should be withdrawn, if for no other reason than Senator Blumenthal's point that a thorough investigation is going to take time. Let him clear it up. He can reapply when there's a next vacancy, but right now he should be done.
Yeah, I mean, to put it bluntly, I don't think that a man accused of sexual assault should be nominating another man accused of sexual assault for the Supreme Court of the United States of America. I think this should be investigated thoroughly. I agree with Senator Blumenthal. This should be investigated by the FBI. This isn't just about, I mean, obviously we've been talking a lot about Anita Hill and the things that she put on the line and the things that she's done for women in this country, but the things that are being, the crimes that are being cited in this case, and the alleged crime that's cited in this case is an alleged rape. That's a big deal, and that goes beyond, Brett Kavanaugh's credibility to be a Supreme Court judge. This should be investigated, and this is important for all of us to see justice being served in this case, especially.
Nancy, you're here in part because of your representation of women in these admittedly difficult scenarios, even when the facts are on their side. Take a listen to what Ms. Ford's attorney said today about motive.
No one in their right mind, regardless of their motive, would want to inject themselves into this process and face the kind of annihilation that she will be subjected to. This is not a politically motivated action.
Nancy, does that ring true based on your experience?
Yes,
and then Senator Blumenthal.
Yeah, because women who complain about sexual abuse, sexual harassment, are either nuts or sluts. Hatch just said it. Yeah. She must be crazy if she's accusing this man of being a drunken, almost rapist. She must be crazy. Also, what's the rush here? Why are the Republicans giving so much power to a president who is under investigation, whose campaign chair just pled guilty, and he has incredible Russia ties, whose personal lawyer just pled guilty, his NSA head pled guilty. We have 19 other indictments. Why are we giving so much power to somebody with such an ethical cloud? And as was pointed out, he brags about sexually assaulting women, and he supported a pedophile for Senate.
Senator?
Absolutely right on all those points, especially on the motive here. She actually hesitated for weeks, asked that her name be kept confidential, declined to come forward. She knew and foresaw this nightmare of hostile scrutiny. But equally important, the impact on the United States Supreme Court. Going forward with this nomination will cast a shadow and stain on an institution that depends for its power on credibility and trust. It has no armies. It has no police force. It's obeyed because of its credibility and the American people's belief in its integrity. And this nomination would forever stain the Supreme Court in a way that I think may well be irreparable.
And before we go, Elise, I want to give you a final word on how you turn some of the principles, which I think have been, quite well laid out here on this panel. How do you turn them into political organizing and action? And putting up on the screen some of the individuals who have been accused of politically being on both sides of these things. You have open to a vote delay, Senator Flake, Corker, and Murkowski. In the time since we've created this list, the vote has been delayed now, at least past next week for the hearing, who want testimony, Senator Collins and Graham. I wonder what you are telling your members, Elise, to do about someone like Senator Collins, who had said she was pro-choice, had told the voters she was pro-choice, but was moving forward on appearing to support this nomination after the hearings suggested he was very open to other things. And now you have everything new over the weekend. What are you doing politically on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, our members have been holding vigils. They've been calling. This is just going on overdrive. We released today so many of those Republican senators who claim to stand with women have said so in the past. They've got to make their actions match their word. And I will tell you the one thing, Ari. Often our members in red states say, I'm not calling because our senators don't listen to us anyway. Our members in red states are on overdrive right now. This transcends politics. This is women fighting for our lives, for our integrity, and the rage will power us through these hearings, but also through November.
We begin